All right, Glenn, this is going to be a super easy analysis for me because I'm very, very familiar with your golf swing. And I see a lot of the same patterns are still in there from when we worked together. So I just want to identify a couple things for you. And sometimes it's easier to see this and understand it when you're doing an online lesson than if I'm there actually teaching you the lesson, because I can show you very specific things. I can stop it at certain points in the swing and make a reference to it. So I think you'll take a lot away from this. Backswing looks really good. Don't need to change anything in the backswing here. I think you get to the top in a very, very functional position at the top. So nothing that I would change there. Pressure's moving into the trail side nicely. Hips are turning, shoulders are turning. Wrist and arm structure looks pretty solid. I mean, you actually got a pretty big shoulder turn there. So more than 90 degrees. One of the reasons why you hit it so far. Here's where things start to kind of break down a bit for you. When I say break down, this is where the timing aspect of your golf swing starts to come into play. Sorry, I had to yawn there. As long as I've worked with you or watched you hit balls, you've always struggled with controlling the club face, and you've always struggled with the longer stuff, especially the driver, hitting it in the center of the face. So it's not as if you lose control of your path or face. It's where you hit it in the face, and it's how you're controlling or timing the closure of the club face. So the first thing I want to call to your attention here is if you just look up here at the top of your backswing, and I want you to look at the club face and how much of the club face you see on this side of the shaft. Okay, so it's pretty visible to you right there. And as you start down, I want you to notice how the club face visible to the camera starts to diminish to the point to where I can almost start to see a little bit of the back of the flange on this side of the shaft. So we can see that the face has opened relative to this top of the backswing position. Okay? Now that's going to happen for a couple of different reasons. The first being the fact that you're shallowing the shaft. So the shallower the shaft plane is coming down, the more open the club face is to the target line. It's pretty standard. But I would also say that you are probably moving into just a little bit of extension in this left wrist. Okay? So what I would like to see is imagine that you're holding at the top of your backswing right now. You've got a screwdriver in your left hand. Okay? And you're going to turn that screwdriver a little bit in a counterclockwise direction. So you're going to turn that screwdriver a little bit in this direction here. And what that's going to do is expose just a little bit more of that club face early in the downswing phase. Okay? Now, I'm of the belief that the way the center of mass of the club moves, and when I say center of mass, I'm just talking about basically the balance point along the shaft here. If I just put a little dot there, that balance point, whether it's a steep shaft, a shallow shaft, or what have you, the golfer is going to start coordinating movements with their body in response to how that moves. Okay? And they're going to coordinate a response based on how not only how that moves, but what the club face is doing. Okay? So, for example, someone that has an open club face like you do right here is going to probably start curving the handle down and to the left very abruptly, because that's one way to try to get the club face to be square. The other way to do it would be to stall out the upper body and kind of flip release. Well, for as long as I've known you, you've always arced that handle down and to the left really, really hard. That's been your way of kind of closing that club face. And you've always had like a super low exit. Now, I'll say this is the best I've seen your golf swing look in quite some time. This is one of the higher exits I've seen from you, okay? Let's talk about what we're giving up, though. For you to have the ability to arc that handle down into the left like that, you have to stay in what I call forward flexion too long in the downswing. And what I mean by that is like your upper body is staying, I'm going to change colors here. Your upper body stays kind of bent forward. Oops. Your upper body kind of stays bent forward for a very long time in the downswing. Right there. And you can see we lose control of the handle just a little bit. So we start getting a little bit of rehinging going on early in the, early past impact. And what we should see from here, if I just took that position that you're in right now on the right, and I could just put my hands on you, and I could pull this left shoulder back and push this pelvis gently forward, I would see your arms in a much straighter line right there. Okay? Let me give you an example. Okay, here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about here. Charlie Hoffman. Got one of the best pivots on tour. I'm going to try to pause him at the same spot I'm stopping you at. But watch how his pelvis is moving forward. His left shoulder is moving up. And I think right now he's in about the same position you're in. But notice how much more in line the shaft is with his right arm. Look at how his left shoulder is dramatically pulled back more. Okay? And his pelvis is more forward. Now, here's the thing that's important for you to understand. This motion that you see over here on the right that you're doing, it's a byproduct. It's a consequence of your club face being open in transition and on the way down. Because if you made the move that Charlie Hoffman is making over here with your wide open club face, you'd hit big slices and push blocks off the driving range. So you've learned to coordinate this lower body motion to match up and allow you to be able to square that club face. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to solve this club face position at the top. All right, so I tried to find a decent example here of sort of the club face feels or alignments you want to feel at the top. So I'll get you stopped up there. And then if you watch this player here on the right, notice how much more of the club face is visible on this side of the shaft. And look at the difference in your wrist angles. He's got a little more flexion in there. And then as he starts down, you can briefly see as he shallows the shaft, he loses some of the visibility of the club face. But here it comes back. Right there is the view that I want you to see. And if we look at yours versus his, it's dramatically different right there. Okay? So now, if we can get your club face alignment a little bit more in the position that he's in, there's not going to be any reason for you to stay bent forward, to arc that handle down into the left so hard. You're going to be able to push that pelvis forward and pull that left shoulder back with everything you got. So number one, your attack angle is going to shallow. Number two, you're going to probably hit it a little further, more compressed, because you're going to have a little bit less dynamic loft. So if we look at the dynamic loft of your club face versus his, it's got to be dramatically different. So there's going to be more compression. There's going to be more ball speed there. Okay? And then when we get down to this last parallel, this is when we can really see the face layback happening in your case. And you can see how much different. If I just draw a straight line on your leading edge, it looks like that. And if I draw a straight line on his leading edge, it looks about like that. So we can see it's at this critical moment right here at P6 where all you're left to do is just slam the handle into your left hip and really arc that thing down into the left. That's the last kind of saving grace to be able to square that club face. I know these are small things, but they're critical in your game because you do so many other things really, really well. Hope this is easy for you to see and understand, and I look forward to seeing you out on the range and seeing your progress.